So I got the 2020 iMac right beside me. It's the 27-inch model, and by God, is it stacked with the latest specs. i9 10th gen CPU, it's using a specific Apple SKU, the 10910K. This is a variation of the 10900K that you're used to seeing on desktop PCs. It has 32 gigabytes of RAM, a 1 terabyte NVMe SSD, and the latest Radeon 5700 XT GPU. Now, in terms of design, it's the exact same thing. Not a lot has changed. You have the same ports, 2 Thunderbolt 3, 3 USB ports, you have an audio jack, and an SD card slot. The big update this year is that you can buy it with a 10 gigabit Ethernet jack. This is something that was reserved to the iMac Pro. This is great because I personally have a backup solution that I work directly off, and I connect it directly using 10 gigabit Ethernet. Now, the big deal this year is that you can now buy the nano texture display on an iMac. This was previously reserved for the XDR display only. This was done right. It's textured into the glass, and it significantly reduces all reflections hitting the display. And this is exactly what I want. Yes, technically, if you have a regular glass glossy display beside it, it might look a little bit brighter, but this is the best implementation I've seen so far. Screen brightness, color accuracy, and color gamut are still exceptional on this display. It may be the same old 5K display that Apple's been using for a while, but it's still one of the better displays out there on the market, and it looks great with the nano texture. The other big addition is the webcam. We get a 1080p webcam, the same webcam that's in the iMac Pro, and by God, does it look so much better than the webcam on the MacBook Pro 16. So if you're staying at home and you're using your computer for conference calls, you're gonna love this webcam compared to the previous one. The speakers are also the same as the previous iMac, but the difference this year is that they added a variable controller to the T2 chip in order to equalize the sound. So depending on the type of content you're watching, the equalization settings will kick in and offer you a better sound experience. Now, I did compare these speakers to the MacBook Pro 16, which I feel are like the best speakers on a laptop right now. The MacBook Pro 16 sounded slightly brighter, but the iMac was louder with better mids and heavier bass. The other addition is the microphones. There's 3 of them in here, exactly like the MacBook Pro 16, but the big difference is you don't get those beam-forming mics, meaning it's not gonna follow your voice when you're not directly in front of it. This is fine considering the iMac is gonna be stationary on your desk and you're most likely gonna be staring at it the entire time, but the quality of the microphone is exactly the same as the MacBook Pro 16. This is a microphone check using the iMac 2020. This is a microphone check using the iMac 2020. This is a microphone test using the MacBook Pro 16. This is a microphone test using the MacBook Pro 16. Right now I'm talking using the Rode Procaster microphone. I am using the Rode Procaster microphone. Now, when it comes to performance, you would think my water-cooled desktop PC would absolutely destroy the iMac. But this is where software optimization comes into play and changes everything. If you're looking at raw benchmarks, then yes, on paper, the 10900K, especially in something like Cinebench, is going to be faster. Same with the GPU. The RTX 2080 Super inside of my 10900K is a faster GPU than the 5700 XT. The 5700 XT, to put it in context for you, is very similar to an RTX 2080 Super Max-Q. Now, when you start using software, specifically in the Adobe suite, that's when everything changes. If you're a Photoshop user, both of these computers performed amazingly. But the difference is the iMac beat out my desktop PC. Not by tons, but by enough. Same with After Effects. Because the 5700 XT is sporting 16 gigabytes of VRAM, compared to 12 on my 2080 Super, the performance of rendering and applying effects in After Effects is faster on the Mac. The only area in the Adobe suite that my PC won was Adobe Premiere. The problem is the 5700 XT lost out when it came to exporting files. It was slower, something to do with the optimizations, probably Adobe's fault, is just not there. The CUDA cores are preferred. They're better optimized to export footage. If you're talking about multicam playback and timeline scrubbing, it's actually faster on the iMac. Now, if you're a developer, same sort of story. Because it's running on Mac OS, you have that Unix kernel. Compiling code using the CPU is going to be faster on the Mac compared to my desktop PC. Then there's gaming. You can actually game on this iMac. This 5700 XT is a capable gaming card. The only downfall though is that you're still stuck with a 60 Hertz display, and this would have been an absolute awesome time to add some of that ProMotion to their iMac line. Thermals, on the other hand, are always a hot topic, pun intended, with Apple devices, because we've seen, like the MacBook Air and some other machines, get really high temperatures. But you have to understand something. Apple has a deal with Intel to get the best silicone from the fabs that come out of the manufacturing process. So their CPUs can handle the higher temperatures better than like the typical 10900K that you'd buy for your desktop PC. So yeah, I am seeing temperatures that go over 90, and sometimes the clock speeds will go down to 3.6 to 3.9. But at the end of the day, the software experience, the faster software experience that I showed you in this video speaks for itself. So here's the thing. The iMac 2020 may look the same as the previous generation, but they did a good job of updating the things that count. The 10-core Intel paired with the 5700 XT from AMD runs beautifully. You have a better webcam, which is great from working from home, better microphones, better speakers, and most importantly to me, the ability to buy it with an RJ45 and a nanotexture matte display. Look, if you're worried about this getting outdated because of Apple silicone, I don't think that's gonna happen for a while. For Apple silicone, an ARM processor, to be as powerful as what you have inside of here is going to take years. The first things to go will be the MacBook Air, then the MacBook Pro. But I think if you were to buy this Intel iMac today, you should be fine for the next 4 to 5 years. I hope that helps, this review. If you have any more questions, let me know in the comments below. Like the video if you liked it, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next video.